Tonight, the federal government strikes a deal with China, reducing tariffs on canola. Family and friends gather to remember Trevor Dubois, who died after a fight with hospital security. And strong winds wreak havoc on Saskatchewan roads.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, January 16th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. A major shift in Beijing Friday, with Prime Minister Mark Carney charting a new path forward with the world's second largest economy.
Pleased today to announce that Canada and China have reached a preliminary but landmark trade agreement to remove trade barriers and reduce tariffs.
That means lowering the tariff on Canadian canola seed to 15% and removing tariffs on canola meal and peas from March until at least the end of 2026. In return, Chinese electric vehicles will be allowed back into Canada. The news comes as a relief for canola farmers here in Saskatchewan. Alexander Kwan has that story.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe had a front row seat to Canada's new trade agreement with China, a visual that even Moe admits was unusual.
Well, if you asked me 2 years ago if I'd be seated beside the Prime Minister at any meeting, I'm not sure I would have taken you seriously.
Speaking with CBC from Beijing, Moe touted the benefits of the new deal just hours after it was announced.
As I say, a very positive day for Canada-China relations, a positive day for the agriculture industry in Canada.
It's an assessment that many in the canola industry agree with. Farmers in Saskatchewan and across the prairies have suffered since China imposed a 100% tariff on Canadian canola products last year. Now, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
We lost 43% of our market price on canola, dropping from $12 to $14 a bushel down to $7.50. So this is an opportunity to see some meaningful price improvement and significantly help with reducing our losses on a per acre basis on our farm.
Industry experts and farmers say they were eager for news from Prime Minister Mark Carney's trade mission, but were shocked by Friday's announcement.
We had assumed there would be some positive news. I was kind of surprised that it was an actual reduction of tariffs was announced. I was kind of more anticipating just some further negotiations. So certainly pleased by this positive news.
It also gives some farmers hope about what could happen next.
Canada needs to forge its own trail and build relationships. So this is very good. And like I said before, we've been nurturing this relationship with China for 30 years.
The deal means farmers will have the information they need to make decisions before seeding begins in the spring. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
The Federal Court of Appeal has ruled the Liberal government did not have reasonable grounds to invoke the Emergencies Act in 2022. It was aimed at quelling convoy protests in Ottawa. Olivia Stefanovich reports.
After a month of horns blaring and trucks blocking traffic in downtown Ottawa, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded to the 2022 convoy protest in a big way.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act,
authorizing the first ever use of extraordinary, albeit temporary, powers to end the blockade.
Hold the line!
Hold the line!
Hold that line!
You must leave. You will be arrested.
Demonstrators assembled against the public health response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and new vaccination requirements for cross-border truckers were removed and arrested.
Freedom!
Some saw their bank accounts frozen.
Certainly, it was a sad day for Canadians when that happened.
Civil liberty groups launched a legal challenge.
Governments tend to panic and they overreact.
The federal court found Ottawa's use of special powers unreasonable, and now the Federal Court of Appeal has agreed.
I think the lesson here is that we need courts and the rule of law to keep our governments in check.
The appeals court found Cabinet didn't have reasonable grounds to believe a threat to national security existed and failed to exhaust all options before invoking the never-before-used measures.
What this means is that there is now some guidance and some clarity about how those powers to suspend people's civil liberties and fundamental freedoms, how those powers can be used.
Ottawa says it will take time to review the ruling before determining whether to seek an appeal at Canada's highest court.
We'll reserve judgment on the path forward until we have the opportunity to make a considered decision on that issue.
If the case does head to the Supreme Court of Canada, it would set a precedent on the use of the Emergencies Act and mark the final step in this legal battle that civil liberties groups say they're ready for. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
High winds have closed highways in parts of the province and have caused a multi-car pileup east of Regina. The RCMP is advising people to stay off the roads if the weather is bad.
It can be deceiving. It looks sunny out. You look outside and you can see some blue skies, but it's not necessarily the road conditions that are causing this. It is that visibility piece, blowing that fresh snow around at times. There's near zero visibility.
The city of Regina says there hasn't been enough snow to declare snow routes or start a systematic plow. Crews are instead providing ice control at major intersections and clearing roads around the outskirts of the city.
The northwest end of the city continues to be our primary focus, and problem areas that are blocked by snow drifts or ice around the city will be addressed as they are identified.
Warren says ice control trucks will continue to patrol the city until the winds die down. And for more now on when that's going to happen, we are joined by weather specialist Mickey Wolf. Mickey, just how strong have those winds been?
Ethan, the winds have been very strong, especially across most of southern and central Saskatchewan, even extending into the Churchill region. Let's take a look at how strong the winds were yesterday. Now, these are the gusting winds. So we saw gusting up to, today's winds in Regina up to 96 kilometers an hour, as well as Estevan. And in Saskatoon, Moose Jaw and Swift Current, we were seeing those winds gusting close to 90. So a very windy day, causing a lot of havoc out on the roads. And yesterday, we had even stronger winds gusting across the province. Now, this is just a snapshot, but this is very reflective of how strong the wind was for most of Saskatchewan yesterday. We saw those winds in excess of 100 for Moose Jaw, Coronach, and Estevan. Regina and Saskatoon also very strong for both cities. Saskatoon near 90, Regina almost at 100. So, Ethan, those winds should be dying down as we get into Sunday, and I'll have more details in the forecast coming up.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you, Mickey. Hundreds gathered in Prince Albert Thursday to mourn 36-year-old Trevor Dubois. He died last week after a physical altercation with security at Saskatoon's Royal University Hospital. And as Ashwarya Duda reports, his loved ones want people to know who he was.
Rainbow ribbons and bouquets of flowers adorned tables at the funeral for 36-year-old Trevor Dubois. Hundreds gathered in Prince Albert on Thursday to say goodbye. They watched videos, shared stories, laughed, and cried while celebrating Dubois' life.
It's been a week since Dubois died here at Royal University Hospital after an altercation with security officers. There's still questions and controversy around how he died. But on Thursday, family and friends held each other as they shared stories of how he lived. Trevor Dubois was an advocate for those in need, a mentor, an Indigenous social worker, and a proud member of the 2S LGBTQ+ community.
Bianca Sanderson, who knew Dubois for 25 years, delivered his eulogy. She says he taught people how to be unapologetically authentic and to laugh even in the hardest times.
Former classmates, colleagues, and friends spoke to CBC at the funeral. They said he was an inspiration, someone you could rely on. But underneath the grief, they also had demands for answers.
Métis Nation Saskatchewan Regional Director Sherry McLennan says Dubois' death has hit Indigenous people hard. She says it's frightening to have an Indigenous family member in the hospital right now. Dubois was receiving treatment for brain cancer at RUH at the time of his death. Saskatoon police say hospital security entered Dubois' room after it was reported a firearm was seen inside. Police say when security tried to restrain him, an altercation happened and Dubois became unresponsive. They say they found an imitation gun along with meth and drug paraphernalia, but clarified the meth was not pharmaceutical medication.
Dubois' family claims that what police thought was a firearm was actually a lighter shaped like a gun. They say the difference matters because it shapes how people understand who Trevor Dubois was and what happened. Police say investigation is ongoing, and as friends and family wait for answers, they say they'll keep telling his story. Aishwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Well, a tough walk to school for the kids in Regina Friday, walking through those big, huge drifts and being blown around by all that wind. And we are still in for some gusty weather this weekend, as Mickey alluded to. Mickey is back after the break with her full forecast. Stay with us. Back to our top story now, China's reduction of tariffs on Canadian canola. Political pundit Murray Mandrick says Friday's agreement is not just significant for Canada, but significant in the relationship between Saskatchewan and Ottawa.
Well, I would go beyond fairly significant to something that's actually potentially game-changing for Scott Moe and potentially historic. And I don't think I'm overstating things. For my own edification of late, I've been reading a lot about the history of this place that goes back even before I was around. And the stuff that is involving any relationship between Ottawa and Saskatchewan, particularly when there's a federal Liberal government involved, Saskatchewan always loses. You can go back to the NEP. You can go back to the potash royalties and the taxes of the day. Any kind of investment in Saskatchewan always favored Ottawa, always favored Eastern Canada. This is real. This is the long-standing frustration that gets into the whole issue of why there's Western alienation, why there's talk of separation. As such, it all has to do with the fact that we'd never have a situation like we saw the other day, or today, where we have Scott Moe sitting beside the Prime Minister of Canada announcing a deal that's favorable to Saskatchewan over Ottawa. It's a good deal in my mind, and objectively speaking, I think it's far more significant to have a strong canola industry and not have these massive tariffs on a product that we're actually moving, selling, rather than having this issue related to the tax on EVs that isn't really a real issue. It's a new industry, but if you look at manufacturing in Ottawa or in Eastern Canada and Ottawa's approach to it, I don't think it's significant. You're right. Obviously, Ontario and Eastern Canada is going to have its nose out of joint. It's so used to getting its own way by its own might. But I honestly believe that the right decision was made here in a difficult situation. And this is fantastic for Scott Moe. I don't know long-term how it's going to work for him because he's a conservative. I imagine Pierre Poilievre can't be particularly happy seeing Scott Moe sit beside Mark Carney and offer him support to a deal that's going to have a fair bit of controversy. Fantastic political move by Mark Carney to have a Western Premier beside him and show that there's unity in the nation. But it's also a pretty good move for Scott Moe because he's doing something productive. That doesn't happen on these trade trips. We've been critical of these trips to United Arab Emirates or India that produce nothing. Jeremy Harrison loves to travel for no apparent reason. This is one particular trip that's fantastic for Scott Moe because of the result it's produced. How much he had to do with it, I'm not 100% sure. But let's just judge it strictly on the outcome. And as of now, objectively speaking, this is a fantastic outcome for Scott Moe.
And Carney's push toward diversifying trade away from the U.S. requires re-engaging with China after a long period of strained relations. But the Prime Minister insists he's made Ottawa's red lines clear to Beijing and says the new partnership includes a collaborative approach to tackle the issue of political interference and transnational crimes.
Part of the agreement includes a security aspect, greater cooperation between law enforcement on a series of cross-border crime issues. That's the kind of progress we need in order to address a range of issues, including illicit narcotics, but as well as interference. And then the second is that we have an understanding. These are some of the issues that we discuss in terms of our expectations in Canada, our red lines in terms of preventing foreign interference, not tolerating foreign interference, and addressing it when we see it.
A public inquiry last year found Beijing to be the most active perpetrator of foreign interference in Canada. In April, Carney described Beijing as the biggest security threat facing Canada. Beijing insists it does not meddle in other countries' affairs. The Prime Minister is also making it clear the new partnership will include collaboration on human rights issues, despite both countries having what Carney described as different systems. Mickey Wolf is back now with a full look at the forecast. I know you showed us the stats there earlier, Mickey, but for some reason it just felt like the winds were even stronger as I was out on my lunch break today.
Ethan, I think when we're supposed to be enjoying a break, the winds gusting, especially where you are in Regina, up to and in excess of 90, it doesn't feel like such a great break. But let's take a look at our skies we've seen over the day to give us a little bit of reflecting and an idea of what we might see ahead of us. So we've got those clouds coming into the south and central regions right now. We can still see those winds moving pretty quickly and disturbing Ethan Williams' lunch break, mine as well. And those daytime highs were a little bit warmer than they felt, certainly. We saw a high of -7 in Regina, but things felt colder than -20 with that wind chill. And it was much of the same for Saskatoon, but at least we're not seeing those temperatures above freezing. We're now back moving slowly towards those average temperatures for January. Now, we've got a low pressure system moving through the province tomorrow, and with the winds we expect to see tomorrow night, that could create a blowing snow situation for the south, especially in that southeast corner. We've got a high pressure system then moving into Monday and getting in there for the noon hour. We should see those winds calming down as we get into the week, but it's not the last we've seen of them. As we get into midday tomorrow, we're going to see that gusting pick up again, especially in the central region, moving into the southwest. And then as we get into the evening hours, we are going to see strong winds gusting again. Now, this model is not showing gusting in excess of 80 across the south, but we will see gusting up to 70 kilometers an hour, certainly for a lot of southern Saskatchewan. And then moving into Sunday, we will see those winds dying down as we hit the evening hours. As for snowfall accumulation, we're seeing up to 5 centimeters for Hudson Bay, Moosomin, and then throughout the southwest and the west central parts of the province, we might see up to 2 centimeters as we get into Monday evening. In the north, though, it's a bit of a different story. We are going to have a bit more snowfall, especially in the far north for Uranium City and Stony Rapids. Our visibility is a little bit limited as we get into Saturday as well, folks. But taking a look into our week ahead, we are going to see a little bit of wind chill here, folks. We've got some colder days ahead of us for Regina for Saturday and Sunday. We're seeing quite a bit of a breeze there. And then in Saskatoon, we've got a chillier one ahead of us as well, with those overnight temperatures dropping down, Ethan. So we're going to let go of the winds, but prepare for some cold.
Okay, so lunch inside for the next couple days then.
Indoor lunches are recommended.
Okay, thank you, Mickey.
Thank you.
Well, WestJet says it's canceling a new cabin configuration that would have added an extra row of seating on many of its aircraft. The reversal comes as passengers voiced their displeasure with less legroom. The airline will return to its prior seating standards for economy class cabins on recently configured aircraft and remove 1 row of seats. Executives say the decision was made following feedback from employees and customers amid a backlash to the tighter layout. Well, this is not what Toronto Blue Jays fans wanted to hear. Free agent infielder Bichette has reportedly agreed to a contract with the New York Mets. It is a 3-year deal worth a whopping $126 million. That works out to, an average of just $42 million a year. Bichette had spent his entire 7-year career with the Jays and was considered a cornerstone of the franchise. Well, stay with us. We're back after the break. Welcome back. Manitoba is looking at how artificial intelligence can best be used in classrooms. The first Winnipeg AI Education Summit was held Friday in that city. The Premier spoke at the event, which brought together students, teachers, and industry partners. The group is looking at how AI can be used not only productively, but responsibly in classrooms. Wab Canoe says he has reservations about it being used to monitor students and Manitobans.
The mission that you are setting out to accomplish with young people in the classes and schools across our province requires a protected zone of privacy. And AI, on the one hand, probably one of the greatest learning tools that we've ever invented as a species in the historic sweep of time. On the other hand, probably one of the more efficient surveillance tools.
Canoe says Manitoba is working on an AI implementation plan. He says the government will start looking at artificial intelligence infrastructure while considering the social implications as it becomes more widely used. Nothing artificial about those winds out there, though. Mickey, just how bad is it going to be overnight?
Definitely no AI-generated winds. Ethan, they're all real and you can step outside and experience them. Let's take a look at overnight tonight because while this board reflects our temperatures, what you're seeing here, folks, is just our lows tonight. It's not factoring in the winds. So across south and central Saskatchewan, we are seeing gusting up to 60 kilometers an hour tonight, but that will be dying down as we get into the overnight hours. And in the far north, we're not seeing too much gusting tonight, but we are seeing cooler temperatures. Wind chill factors will make those feel closer to -40 in the far north. As we get into tomorrow, mid-afternoon, we're seeing things warm up quite a bit, especially for the Churchill region closer to the west side near Alberta. And much of the same is true for south and central Saskatchewan. We are seeing a nice little warm up before things cool down again as we get into the week. And those winds will be picking up as we hit the afternoon hours. We saw earlier in our forecast for the winds. So expect another windy day tomorrow, Ethan, especially as we get into the evening. It's a good time to hang out inside.
I'm just still not used to hearing -40 at this point.
You know what? I hope we don't hear it too much moving forward into February.
Yeah, good deal. Okay, thanks, Mickey.
Thank you.
And that is our news for this Friday. You can always head to our website or YouTube channel for more, or download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend.